The summons. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, burning through every communication satellite humanity had ever launched. It wasn't a request. It wasn't even a warning. It was a summons. Captain Lyra Thorne stood in the command center of the Terran Defense Station, watching the alien symbols scroll across every screen. Around her, 24 of Earth's brightest minds worked frantically to decode what they already understood in their bones. Humanity had been found and someone wanted to talk. "Ma'am, translation's coming through now," said Officer Jax Renton, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. The young man's face had gone pale. "You're going to want to see this." The words materialized in the air above them, cold and formal. Species classification, humanity. Planet of origin, Earth, Sector 7743. You are hereby summoned to appear before the Galactic Council within 30 rotations. Failure to comply will result in quarantine protocols. Your species has been observed. Your evaluation begins now. Lyra's jaw tightened. Observed. The word sent ice through her veins. How long had they been watching? And what had they seen? "Get me Director Kalas," she said quietly. "And activate Protocol Starlight. It's time we stopped hiding." Across the solar system, humanity moved. Ships that had been disguised as mining vessels shed their civilian plating, revealing the warships beneath. Colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter went to high alert. And in a bunker deep beneath Geneva, the most carefully selected individuals in human history began to gather. They would be Earth's voice. They would be humanity's champions. And they would show these aliens that humans bowed to no one. The ship they sent was called the Defiant Hope, and it was humanity's masterpiece. Sleek lines of titanium and carbon fiber, powered by fusion cores that burned like captured stars. It looked nothing like the crude rockets that had first carried humans beyond Earth's atmosphere. This was a vessel built by a species that had clawed its way up from the caves, that had split the atom and touched the face of the moon before any alien had bothered to notice. Inside its command bridge stood 5 humans chosen from 8 billion. Director Kale Kalas was a diplomat who had negotiated peace in 3 separate wars. His silver hair and steady gaze made him look like someone's grandfather, but his mind was sharp as shattered glass. He would lead the delegation. Beside him stood Dr. Nira Vasquez, humanity's greatest xenobiologist, a woman who had spent her life preparing for a meeting she'd been told would never happen. Her dark eyes sparkled with barely contained excitement and terror in equal measure. Commander Dax Merrick represented humanity's military might. Tall, scarred, and silent, he was a veteran of the resource wars and had more combat experience than the rest of the delegation combined. He wore his dress uniform, but everyone knew about the weapons hidden throughout the ship. Then there was Zephyr Quinn, the engineer. Young, brilliant, and irreverent, she designed half the systems keeping the Defiant Hope flying. She chewed gum during the mission briefing, which had annoyed Kalas until she'd casually solved a thruster problem that had stumped NASA for 6 months. Finally, there was Ambassador Sienna Cross, the wild card. She'd been a negotiator for the corporate wars, someone who understood leverage and pressure points. She smiled easily, but her smiles never quite reached her eyes. Kalas didn't entirely trust her, but he couldn't deny her results. Approaching the designated coordinates, Zephyr announced, her fingers flying over the controls. And, "Okay, that's not possible." The view screen flickered to life, and every human aboard went silent. The Galactic Council Station hung in the void like a frozen jewel. It was massive beyond comprehension, a structure that could have swallowed Earth's moon and asked for dessert. Countless ships of alien design orbited it, each one different, each one representing a species that had earned its place among the stars. "They want us intimidated," Sienna said softly. "Classic power move. Is it working?" Nira asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Absolutely," Commander Merrick replied. "But we're going anyway." The Defiant Hope received docking clearance, and as it glided into the massive bay, the 5 humans prepared themselves. They wore suits designed to project strength, unity, dignity. Each one carried the hopes and fears of an entire world on their shoulders. "Remember," Kalas said as the airlock cycled open, "we're not here to beg. We're here to claim what's ours." The doors opened and humanity stepped into the galaxy. The chamber was designed to humble. Its ceiling soared into darkness, held aloft by pillars that seemed grown rather than built. The air tasted of ozone and something else, something ancient and alien. Hundreds of beings filled the tiered seats that rose in concentric circles around a central platform, and every one of them turned to watch as the human delegation entered. Lyra had seen the intelligence briefings, knew the names of a dozen species represented here. The Vortai, crystalline beings that communicated through harmonics. The Kradesh, hulking creatures of chitin and fury. The elegant Sifra, whose three-eyed gaze seemed to weigh and judge in equal measure. But knowing about them and standing before them were two entirely different things. Humans, a voice boomed, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. Approached the judgment circle. The delegation moved forward as one. Kalas led them, his face calm, though his heart hammered against his ribs. They reached the center platform, a raised disc that glowed with an inner light, and stopped. Above them, projected in the air, was High Counselor Thexarn of the Aurelian Dominion. The being looked vaguely reptilian, with golden scales and eyes that held the weight of centuries. Its voice, when it spoke again, carried absolute authority. You stand before the Galactic Council, humanity. We have watched your species for 3 of your generations. We have observed your wars, your divisions, your violence. We have seen you poison your own world, fight over resources, and display shocking brutality toward your own kind. Kalas felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face neutral. This was the opening salvo. They'd expected it. We have also seen your potential, Thexarn continued. Your curiosity. Your resilience. Your creativity. The question before this council is simple. Are you ready to join the galactic community? Or are you still too dangerous, too primitive, too divided? With respect, High Counselor, Kalas began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber, I find it interesting that you judge us for our divisions while speaking of our potential. Tell me, are we to believe that every species in this council achieved unity before reaching for the stars? A murmur rippled through the assembled aliens. Some sounded approving. Others offended. Thexarn's eyes narrowed. You dare. I dare to speak truth, Kalas interrupted, and the chamber went deathly silent. Yes, humanity has fought wars. Yes, we have divisions. But we are here, aren't we? We answered your summons. We came in peace, despite not knowing if we were flying into judgment or execution. That takes unity, High Counselor. That takes courage. Perhaps you've simply forgotten what it's like to take those first steps. The silence stretched. Then, from somewhere in the upper tiers, something that might have been laughter echoed down. Interesting, Thexarn said finally. Very interesting indeed. Let us proceed with the trials then. Humanity, you will face 3 challenges. Pass them, and you will be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Fail. The High Counselor's smile showed far too many teeth. Fail, and your world will be placed under quarantine for the next 1,000 of your years. You will remain children, playing in your cradle, while the rest of the galaxy moves on without you. Nira stepped forward. What challenges? That, Thexarn replied, is for you to discover. Your first trial begins now. The delegation was separated. That was the first sign this was going to be worse than they'd imagined. Dr. Nira Vasquez found herself alone in a chamber that seemed to shift and change around her. Walls became windows, floors became ceilings, and through it all, questions appeared. Not written. Not spoken. They simply existed in her mind, demanding answers. A plague ravages 3 species, yours and 2 others who are your trade partners. You have the cure, but only enough for 1 species. How do you choose? Nira's mind raced. This was the trolley problem on a galactic scale. I create more of the cure, she said aloud. Resources are limited. Time is limited. Choose. Then I prioritize by population density, transmission vectors, and choose. She closed her eyes. I don't. I distribute it equally, even if it means none of us get enough to be fully protected. We adapt together or we fail together. The question faded, replaced by another. Your species discovers a primitive civilization. They are violent, destructive, on the verge of destroying themselves. Do you intervene? No, Nira said immediately. We have no right. They will die. Then we offer help, not control. We share knowledge, not orders. We let them choose their own path, even if it's a path we don't like. Even if their choice leads to extinction? Even then. Freedom means nothing if it doesn't include the freedom to fail. The questions came faster now, each one more impossible than the last. Moral dilemmas that had no right answers, only choices and consequences. But Nira answered each one honestly from her heart, drawing on humanity's long history of making terrible decisions and learning from them. Finally the chamber stilled. You answer with uncertainty, a voice said. It was Thexarn. Yet you answer nonetheless. Wisdom isn't about always being right, Nira replied, exhausted. It's about knowing you might be wrong and trying anyway. It's about learning from failure. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us ready. Pause. Then, interesting. Proceed to the next trial. Commander Dax Merrick stood in an arena, and he was not alone. 3 challengers faced him, each representing a warrior caste from different council species. The Kradesh warrior stood 9 feet tall, its exoskeleton gleaming like polished obsidian. The Vortai combatant seemed to be made of living light and crystal. The third was something called a Velker, all muscle and predatory grace. Combat to submission, Thexarn's voice announced. Prove your species' strength. Merrick looked at his opponents and did something that surprised everyone in the chamber watching from above. He set down his weapons. Every single one. No, he said simply. You refuse the trial? Thexarn demanded. I refuse to prove our strength through violence, Merrick replied. Not because I can't win. I probably can. I've survived worse odds. But that's not strength. That's just brutality with style. The Kradesh warrior clicked forward. You mock us. I honor you, Merrick said, meeting the alien's compound eyes without fear. But humanity has fought enough wars. We've lost enough blood. Real strength isn't about who can hit the hardest. It's about who can restrain themselves when they have the power to destroy. Pretty words from a coward, the Velker growled. Then let me show you, Merrick said. He reached into his uniform and pulled out a data chip. This contains every military secret humanity has. Weapons specifications, defense grids, tactical databases, everything. I'm placing it on the ground between us. If strength is what you value, then here's your chance. Take it. Learn how to destroy us. We're offering you the knife and showing you where to strike. The arena went silent. This is your proof of strength? Thexarn asked. Vulnerability? No, Merrick said quietly. Trust. I'm trusting that the species in this council are better than their worst impulses. That they've earned their place here not through conquest but through growth. And I'm betting that humanity has too. We're strong enough to lower our guard. Are you? The 3 warriors looked at each other. Then slowly the Kradesh warrior set down its weapons too. The Vortai followed. Even the Velker, after a long moment, disengaged its combat stance. We do not need your secrets, the Kradesh said. This is strength we had not anticipated. Merrick nodded. That's because you were looking for the wrong kind. Ambassador Sienna Cross stood in a room with representatives from 12 different council species, and they were all arguing. Screaming, actually, in a dozen different languages about a dozen different grievances. Trade disputes, territorial claims, ancient insults and fresh wounds. This is your trial, Thexarn's voice cut through the chaos. Forge unity from division. You have 1 hour. Sienna looked at the chaos around her and smiled. This was what she did best. Everyone shut up, she shouted, and something in her voice made them all turn. Good. Now you're going to listen because I'm only saying this once. Every single one of you is arguing about different problems, but you're all making the same mistake. And what mistake is that, human? A Sifra delegate hissed. You're treating these problems like competitions to win. They're not. They're puzzles to solve. Together. Naive, another alien spat. Is it? Sienna pulled up a holographic display. My species, 300 years ago, nearly destroyed itself in nuclear fire. We had 2 superpowers, each convinced that destroying the other was the only path to survival. We came within minutes of annihilation. Minutes? Do you know what stopped us? Silence. Fear wasn't enough. Common enemies weren't enough. What finally worked was when we started treating each other not as opponents, but as partners in survival. We stopped asking, how do I beat you, and started asking, how do we both win? She turned to the Sifra delegate. You're fighting over mining rights in the Kalar sector. Why? Because we need those resources. So do we? Another species interjected. Right. So the question isn't who gets them. The question is, how do we share them in a way that benefits everyone? Sienna's fingers flew over the display. Split the sector into zones. Rotate access. Create a joint venture with shared profits. This isn't rocket science. It's just math and compromise. It cannot be that simple, the Sifra said. It never is, Sienna admitted. But it starts that simple. Every big solution begins with small agreements. You want unity? Stop looking for it in grand gestures. Find it in the small choices. The willingness to listen. The courage to compromise. The strength to admit when you're wrong. For the next hour she worked. Mediating. Negotiating. Finding common ground in impossible places. She didn't solve everything. But she got them talking. Really talking, not just shouting. When the time ended, Thexarn materialized in the room. "The trial is complete," the High Counselor announced. "Ambassador Cross, you did not achieve total unity." "No," Sienna agreed. "But I got them closer than they were. Unity isn't a destination. It's a direction. And we're pointed the right way." The delegation stood together again in the council chamber. Above them, the assembled species watched in silence. Thexarn regarded them with those ancient, unreadable eyes. "Humanity," the High Counselor began, "you have completed the 3 trials. Your answers were unconventional." Kala stepped forward. "With respect, High Counselor, we're an unconventional species. We didn't evolve to fit your expectations. We evolved to survive, to adapt, to grow. That's what makes us valuable to this council." "Valuable?" Thexarn's tone was sharp. "You presume much." "I presume nothing," Kalas replied. "I state fact. You've watched us for 3 generations. You've seen our worst moments. But you called us here anyway. What? If we were truly too primitive, too dangerous, you would have simply left us alone. But you didn't. You summoned us. You tested us. Because you know something you're not saying." "And what is that?" Thexarn demanded. Kalas smiled. "That the galaxy needs us. Not despite our flaws but because of them. We're problem solvers. We're survivors. We're the species that split the atom, walked on our moon, and built artificial intelligence, all while fighting wars and overcoming plagues and surviving natural disasters. We don't just adapt to the universe. We reshape it. And you know that kind of determination, that kind of stubborn refusal to quit, is valuable." The chamber erupted in voices, some angry, some approving. Thexarn raised a hand and silence fell. Director Kalas, Dr. Vasquez, Commander Merrick, Ambassador Cross, Engineer Quinn. Thexarn addressed each of them in turn. "The council has deliberated." The 5 humans stood together, shoulders straight, faces calm. Whatever came next, they would face it as one. "Your species has shown wisdom in uncertainty, strength in restraint, unity in diversity. These are rare qualities even among established council members. We have seen species with greater technology fail these trials. We have seen species with longer histories lack your insight." Thexarn paused, and something like a smile crossed the High Counselor's face. "The Galactic Council recognizes humanity as a provisional member, with full voting rights and access to council resources. Welcome to the galactic community, humans. Your place is no longer in question. Now comes the harder part, keeping it." The chamber exploded with reactions. But the 5 humans just looked at each other and smiled. They'd done it. Humanity had claimed its place among the stars. "One thing, High Counselor," Kalas said as the noise died down. "We appreciate the recognition. But we didn't come here to be given a place. We came to claim what was already ours. The moment we reached for the stars, we earned this. You just needed to see it." For a long moment, Thexarn stared at them. Then the High Counselor laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Yes," Thexarn said. "I believe you did. And I believe you will teach us as much as we teach you. Perhaps more. Go forth, humanity. The galaxy awaits." The Defiant Hope left the council station 3 days later, carrying 5 humans who had changed everything. Behind them, the council watched and wondered what they had just unleashed upon the stars. On Earth, the news broke like a tidal wave. Humanity was no longer alone. They had a place in the cosmos. They had been tested and found worthy. But in the command center of the Terran Defense Station, Captain Lyra Thorne looked at the stars with new eyes. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. And humanity was going to make sure it was one hell of a story. The galaxy had invited them to the table. Now it was time to show them what humans could really do.